Have you ever noticed how the days repeat themselves? Wake, eat, work, sleep. Again and again, like waves crashing on the shore, endlessly echoing the same old rhythm. And yet we wonder why life feels stuck, stale, lifeless. We long for change, but resist it, like a flame fears the wind. But here's the paradox. Nothing changes if you stay the same. If you want new fruits, you must plant different seeds. And if you're tired of the same old story, maybe it's time to put down the script and write a new one. So let us look together, not with panic, but with presence, and what it means to truly change. We spend much of our lives chasing circumstances, believing that if we can just shift the pieces of the outer world, the inner world will finally fall into peace. A better job will make us feel fulfilled. A new relationship will heal our loneliness. Moving to a different place will erase our restlessness. We wait for life to change us, to save us, to somehow deliver a version of ourselves we're too afraid to create from within. But the truth is this: no matter where you go, no matter who you're with, you bring yourself along. You bring your beliefs, your wounds, your habits, your reactions. The stage may change. The actors may switch. But the script remains the same, because the author has not yet awakened. This is the illusion of outer salvation. We think happiness is circumstantial, but it is perceptual. We think peace is found in quiet places, not realizing it's born in a quiet mind. The world we experience is not simply out there, it's filtered through the lens of our own consciousness. If your inner lens is cloudy with fear, insecurity, or resentment, no matter how beautiful the world becomes, you will see distortion. If you are full of inner war, even a garden will feel hostile. And this is not philosophy, it's lived experience. Imagine a man named Arjun. He is frustrated with his life. His work feels empty, his relationships are strained, and he often feels unappreciated. He blames his surroundings. His boss doesn't respect him, his partner doesn't understand him, his city feels suffocating. So he makes a bold move. He quits his job, leaves the relationship, and relocates to a peaceful mountain town, thinking the silence and scenery will solve everything. And for a while it feels like they do. The air is fresher, the pace is slower, the people seem friendlier. But slowly, like dust settling, the same patterns begin to reappear. He still feels unseen. His mind is restless. He gets into conflicts with new people. He begins to feel lonely again. Why? Because Arjun changed his world, but not himself. It's not that changing your job or location is wrong. Sometimes those things are necessary. But the mistake is believing they are the source of change, when in truth they can only reflect it. The real work begins inside. When Arjun finally paused and turned inward, examining his self-worth issues, learning to listen deeply, noticing his constant craving for validation, he began to shift. His perception softened. He didn't need constant praise. He learnt to be present with others. And slowly, the world around him felt warmer, even though the people hadn't changed. He had. This is the essence. Stop waiting for the outside to rescue you. The keys have always been within. When you change the one looking, the world you see also changes. Not because it bent to your will, but because your eyes learned to see differently. True transformation is not about redecorating your life. It's about realizing you were the architect all along. Change does not begin with action. It begins with awareness. Before anything can shift, it must first be seen. And yet most of us move through life asleep, not in the sense of being unconscious, but in the way we live without truly noticing. We follow routines, repeat the same emotional reactions, fall into the same arguments, sabotage the same opportunities, all while telling ourselves that we are stuck or unlucky. But in truth, we are simply unaware. We don't see the patterns clearly enough to step out of them. We can't fix what we haven't noticed. The beginning of transformation, then, is not doing something different, but seeing differently. Awareness is the light that makes the shadows visible. When you bring gentle, curious attention to your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, you start to observe the machinery of your own mind. You begin to recognize how often you react out of habit, how frequently your thoughts spiral into fear, how certain triggers seem to play you like a puppet. But here's the beautiful paradox. Simply seeing these things, without judgment, is enough to begin dissolving their hold on you. Awareness breaks the spell. It doesn't fight the pattern, it exposes it. And what is exposed can no longer operate in the dark. Consider a woman named Mira. She constantly finds herself overwhelmed. Her to-do list is endless. She says yes to everyone, and she burns out regularly. For years, she believes the problem is her circumstances, too much work, too many demands. She tries time management, new productivity apps, even meditation, but nothing changes. Then one day, in a quiet moment, she starts to watch herself, not to fix, not to force, just to observe. She notices that every time someone asks her for help, she feels a pang of guilt at the thought of saying no. She sees how she ties her worth to being needed. She sees the fear beneath it, the fear of being unloved or unworthy if she disappoints others. This moment of seeing is subtle, but it's everything. Now that Mira has become aware of the deeper pattern, the illusion begins to loosen. She no longer blindly agrees to every request. She pauses. She reflects. She chooses. That single act of observation created a space between stimulus and response, and in that space, freedom begins. Awareness is not dramatic. It is quiet, but in its quietness, it contains immense power. It doesn't require you to solve everything. It simply asks you to see clearly. And when you do, your relationship with your own mind begins to shift. You become less reactive, more intentional. You stop living on autopilot and begin to live awake. This is the real beginning of change, not in what you do, but in how you see. When you become aware, even the deepest patterns lose their grip, not because you fought them, but because you finally notice them. And in that noticing, the pattern is no longer you. Most people carry around a fixed idea of who they are. They say things like, I'm just not good with people, or that's just the way I am, or I've always done it this way. These statements seem harmless on the surface, but underneath them lies a deep resistance to growth. We identify with our habits, our past, our wounds, our roles. We become so attached to these ideas that anything which threatens them, even a positive change, feels like a kind of death. And in a way, it is. To change, you must be willing to let go of the version of yourself you've always believed in, even if it's the only version you've ever known. But here's the truth. You are not your name, not your job, not your failures, not your achievements. These are just roles you've played on the stage of life. They may have shaped you, but they are not you. They are temporary expressions, not your essence. The real self, the aware presence behind it all, is spacious, alive, and capable of endless transformation. Clinging to a fixed identity is like wearing winter clothes in the middle of summer because you're afraid to be cold. It no longer fits, but you're afraid of what it means to take it off. Imagine a man named Dev. For years, Dev believed he was shy and socially awkward. In school, he avoided speaking up. In his career, he kept to himself. Over time, this belief became his identity. I'm not a people person. He wore it like a badge, not because it empowered him, but because it protected him from discomfort. Then, one day, he was asked to mentor a younger colleague. Something in him resisted, but he agreed. In their first few conversations, he stumbled, felt awkward, but also noticed something surprising. He cared. He listened. He offered insights. The younger colleague appreciated him. Slowly, Dave began to see cracks in the walls he had built around himself. He wasn't incapable. He was simply living inside a story he had outgrown. Dev didn't become a completely different person overnight, but the moment he questioned the old belief, the moment he considered that he might be more than the role he had always played, the transformation had already begun. He started speaking up more. He mentored others. He even led a team project. Not because he forced it, but because he allowed himself to stop being who he thought he was. Letting go of who you think you are isn't a loss. It's a return. It's remembering that the self is not a fixed object, but a flowing river. If you want change, start by loosening your grip on your identity. Let yourself be rewritten. Let the moment sculpt you. You are not here to remain the same. You are here to become what only you can become. And to do that, you must be willing to step beyond the story. Discomfort is something most of us are taught to avoid. We reach for comfort in our routines, our conversations, our decisions. Familiarity gives us the illusion of safety, and so we build lives that are predictable, manageable, and often, without us realizing it, deeply limiting. But discomfort is not your enemy. It is, in fact, one of your greatest allies. It arises whenever you are about to outgrow something. It shows up at the edge of your comfort zone, not to push you back, but to invite you forward. Real growth never happens where things feel easy or effortless. It happens right where the ground begins to shake, where you doubt yourself, where your heart beats faster. Discomfort is not a signal to retreat. It is a signpost that you are near something meaningful. The unfamiliar feels threatening, not because it's dangerous, but because it challenges the identity we've constructed. To step into the unknown requires a kind of death, the death of the old story, the death of our need for control. And yet, in that very surrender lies transformation. When you stop treating discomfort as something to escape and start treating it as something to explore, your entire relationship with life changes. You begin to see fear not as a wall, but as a doorway. Take the example of Lena, a young woman who had always dreamed of sharing her poetry. She wrote privately for years, but never showed her work to anyone. The idea of performing it publicly made her physically anxious. Her voice trembled just thinking about it. She told herself, I'm not meant for the stage. I'm just a writer. But deep down, she knew her fear wasn't a sign to stop. It was a sign she was touching something real. One evening, she signed up for an open mic night, hands shaking the entire time. Her heart raced as she stood before strangers, her palms sweating. But she read, and something unexpected happened. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. People approached her with tears in their eyes. Her fear hadn't gone away, but she had stepped through it. And in doing so, she found a new version of herself on the other side. Lena didn't conquer fear. She moved with it. She didn't wait to feel ready. She let discomfort be the bridge between who she had been and who she could become. This is the invitation discomfort always brings. It whispers, there is more to you than this. It shows up at the edge of what's known, calling you into deeper territory. The truth is, everything you want, confidence, growth, connection, freedom, lives just beyond what feels safe. Discomfort is the gatekeeper to your transformation, And if you dare to face it, not with resistance, but with curiosity, you will discover that it was never there to stop you. It was always there to show you the way. Though often we try to change ourselves with a clenched jaw and a tight grip, forcing transformation like we're remodeling a house. We chase perfection, believing that if we could just fix every flaw, silence every fear, and control every outcome, then we will finally arrive at peace. But this approach only adds more layers of tension to a life already burdened with pressure. True change, the kind that lasts and liberates, does not come from trying harder. It comes from being more present. Presence is not passive. It is powerful. It is the space in which awareness arises, and in awareness, automatic behaviors lose their grip. Perfection demands that you be something other than what you are. Presence invites you to fully meet yourself as you are. The first path leads to endless striving. The second, to freedom. When you are present, you're not reacting from past wounds or future fears. You're responding to life in real time. And that response, born out of clarity, is the beginning of genuine change. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to show up fully and honestly with what is here now. Imagine a man named Rohit, a father struggling with anger. He loves his daughter deeply, but finds himself snapping at her during stressful moments. He promises himself he'll change. He reads parenting books, sets strict rules for his behavior, and tells himself to stay calm next time. But when the moment comes, when his daughter spills juice on the floor for the third time, he explodes again. The cycle repeats, and each time he fails, he feels more ashamed. He thinks he's failing because he's not perfect. But in truth, he's failing because he's not present. One evening, instead of trying to fix himself, Rohit does something different. When he feels the anger rising, he pauses. He notices his breath. He notices the heat in his chest. He notices the tightness in his jaw. He says nothing. He simply breathes and watches. The moment passes like a wave. His daughter looks at him, surprised, waiting for the usual explosion, but he doesn't erupt. He kneels beside her and helps clean up the juice. That small act, born of presence, shifts everything. It's not dramatic, but it's real, and it plants the seed of new behavior, not through force, but through awareness. Presence allows you to see the moment before the habit takes over. In that space, you have a choice. That choice is the doorway to change. You don't need to be perfect. You only need to be here, truly here. When you practice presence, you're not escaping life. You're finally meeting it. And in that meeting, something softens, something awakens. This is where transformation begins, not by becoming flawless, but by becoming fully conscious. One of the greatest traps we fall into is the belief that we need the entire map before we begin. We imagine that change must come with a grand plan, a detailed vision, or a perfect moment. So we wait. We wait for clarity, for confidence, for conditions to feel right. But life doesn't work that way. Clarity doesn't come before action. It comes through it. The truth is, the path is not revealed all at once. It is revealed one step at a time, and each step, once taken, changes the person who takes it. You don't need to know exactly where you're going. You only need to move consciously and courageously in the direction that calls you, even if your voice trembles as you answer. We think change requires massive effort, but often it only requires a single act of sincerity. One moment of honesty, one decision that honors your truth instead of your fear. And that one step, though it may seem small, carries the power to reshape your entire direction. When you take it, you begin to shift from inertia to motion, from hesitation to momentum, from who you were to who you're becoming. Let's take the example of Asha, a woman who has always dreamed of starting her own design studio. For years, she works at a corporate job that pays well but leaves her feeling creatively numb. She tells herself she'll quit one day, when she's saved enough, when the timing is right, when she's fully confident. But the timing never feels perfect, and the fear always lingers. So she stays, until one day she decides to do just one thing: create a website showcasing her work. She doesn't quit her job. She doesn't launch a business overnight. She simply takes one step toward the life she imagined. In doing so, something inside her shifts. Friends start sharing the site. A small client reaches out. She begins working on projects in the evenings. Her confidence grows, not because she waited for it, but because she built it, one step at a time. Eventually, the side projects grow into something sustainable. She leaves her job, not because everything became easy, but because she became someone who trusted herself enough to walk without the full map. This is the power of a single step. It's not about having all the answers. It's about moving in alignment with what feels true, even if it's uncertain. The step itself reshapes the landscape. It invites new possibilities you couldn't see from a standstill. You don't have to leap into the unknown. You just have to lean into it. The step transforms the walker. It opens the next door, and that door leads to a version of you that you could only meet by moving. So don't wait for the perfect plan. Begin. And let that beginning become your becoming. So if nothing changes while you stay the same, try this instead. Stop running, sit, breathe. Watch the mind. Drop the story. Meet the moment as it is. You don't need to move mountains. You only need to stop pretending you are one. Not because you must, but because you finally can. And then, in that quiet inner shift, without force, without fight, something new begins, and everything changes. Not because the world did, but because you did.